Hello, my name is Erin Vashon, and I am hybrid editor at Longleaf Review. Oh, we've got a cat already in the picture. Welcome to a special B-side feature of the summer 2022 issue in our hybrid genre, where we really dig into what it means to work in hybrid, spending time in video conversation with our hybrid authors on their creative process and all the juicy bits around their work. Today, I'm happy to share space with Maria Picconi to talk about her slow motion erasure Aubade for eye doctors. Hi, Maria.
Hi, sorry. As soon as we start recording, of course, he's like, okay, fluffy morning hug time.
No, cat's welcome. My dog is snoring right underneath me, so all the pets are welcome. Okay, so first, we see erasures take many forms: blackouts, whiteouts, found poems. Aubade for Eye Doctor uses such vibrant color and motion in its erasure. What drew you to this technique for this poem, and what medium did you use?
Well, actually, I've played around with more traditional blackouts and just straight up erasure in the past. And a first version of this was just a poem.
Oh.
And then I felt as though there was something that I really wanted to capture using some type of special technique. So the second version was a blackout poem. Mm-hmm. But when I kind of put the project away and came back to it, I realized that what I wanted to capture was kind of what I'm going to call a dazzle out, which is something that happens to me when I get migraines, which is not that my world goes selectively black and then there's bits of it that are revealed, but things become so light that it is impossible to see. And I normally use Word to do my blackouts by using the highlighter tool and making it black. So I went into Word and I realized that there's a tool called the draw function, and you can use all sorts of brushes with different types of paint. And there was one that really drew me that was called Galaxy, which despite its name had the kind of exact color palette of some of the visual effects I've experienced, where I can no longer see the world the way that I normally can in my normal perceptions, but instead I see this crisscrossing of sparkly colors, and it's quite upsetting, and I can't do anything because I no longer have my vision. So I really thought that it was perfect for this function. And I realized that aside from using the draw function, just like in a PowerPoint, you can actually record the motion of the drawing. And that really struck me as well, because that is something that happens where sometimes my visual field will blur, but only part of it will blur. So there's like a conal kind of aspect to that blurring, which means that I can see the world, but maybe just through peripheral vision, or there's some spots that are affecting things. And I think that's those types of visual auras are common for migraineurs, but for people who have never experienced it before, it is incredibly disorienting and bewildering. And I really wanted to capture that using this form.
That's incredible. I love like what you said about a dazzle out. I think like now, because I also have migraines, I'm gonna, I don't know, that's permanently seared on my brain now, Maria. Okay. Next question, even though I'm kind of going to be stuck there for a while. Aubade for Eye Doctors is really taking up the project of pain, especially the way that embodied pain conflicts with, and I'm going to quote directly from your poetry, all my training in realism, anti-realism, existentialism, ontology, metaphysics. Does working in a hybrid form change or give access to new ways of writing about invisible disability and pain, or is it the same as, say, sitting in poetry, which I know you're so prolific in already? So
yeah, I think that hybrid forms can really change our relationship to perception. There's there's a lot of poems out there that do this without any type of erasure. I think there's a Marwa Halal poem where it's supposed to be read as in Arabic text from right to left. So there are poems that teach us how to read them in such a manner as to eclipse our normal perceptions or our normal state of being. And certainly that's something that I think is really powerful about the hybrid form, because you can portray things not just through words, but through presentation that really get at these ideas of how somebody, how someone's life has been affected by invisible disability, or really any kind of disability. And I think that trying to cleave that gap between what people who aren't experiencing this disability and what people are experiencing can be really difficult. And it's something that I'm interested in capturing, not just as someone who is trained as a philosopher, but also as someone who is obviously really personally affected by my own invisible disabilities.
Yeah. So as a follow-up to that question, I'm wondering if you could speak to writing on discomfort and writing in the hybrid genre. Like, does writing in that kind of liminal genre mimic discomfort? Does it subvert it? What do you what do you have to say?
Yeah. In my mind, I wanted this poem especially to both mimic and simply it's really hard to capture this, but it's so complex, right? And I think that's something that many people experience when they have an invisible disability. There's a complex perception of yourself to the world, by the world, even of yourself at different times. And that's something that I wanted to portray, not only by the fact that there's two, or if you're reading this poem as it's going, maybe multiple kind of infinite versions of this poem. So I wanted to capture my feeling about going to the eye doctor, which is really my number one worst place to go, above the dentist, above the root canal, the whatever, the gynecologist. It's really my least favorite doctor to go to, because you're subjected to a kind of a form of eye torture. And even at the nicest, kindest doctors, where even when I wasn't experiencing a migraine, the room was really dark and hushed. At base, they're shining a bright light into part of your eyes and trying to play with your vision to see how they can correct it through glasses or other aids. And sometimes they're examining your visual field and forcing you to use parts of your eyes that it is simply really uncomfortable. So I wanted there to be a portrayal of my personal discomfort in this experience, while at the same time holding open that space for a larger breadth of feeling.
I love what you said about there being possibly like infinite versions of this because it is a poem in motion and it's being made as the video is progressing on. But as you're talking about the eye doctor and that kind of violence of light, I think, yeah, as a follow-up to that, when I looked up Obaid, the definition was a musical announcement of the dawn, but the unerased poem declares the setting of the doctor's office to be really hushed in artificial dawn. So as a fellow migraineur, I completely appreciate how you write into the relationship of that really like vicious pain that occurs around light. And it really is a particular sort of pain. But there's so much light bouncing around your poem, and if it's not all friendly, like the camera flash of your mother's voice, which insists, Maria, open your eyes. Like there's a sort of violence to that too. So of course, like as a migraineur myself, or well, as a migraineur, as a writer and as a poet, the closing line of your poem says, they are open, which is a kind of insistence, I guess, philosophically, and as a person in pain, pushing back against that violence. I'm wondering if you could speak to the use of erasure as a reclamation of all of those microaggressions and the power structures that are occurring in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great way to get at that type of issue. And in this poem in particular, one of the things that I was thinking about was a background of identity, a background of difference, as an adoptee and as someone who grew up hating the flash of pictures and, oh, we have to retake it because Maria's eyes are closed. I don't know about you, but, and I mean, I think everybody does, right? When the camera flashes bright, there's kind of an after effect. And I think for some people, maybe that's the closest that they'll ever get because they're super lucky to some sort of migraine aura or like some sort of vision snafu. So I wanted to write into the fact that not only when I was growing up and my mother was taking me to the eye doctor, there would be these types of like, I'm experiencing this extreme pain and my mom's there, like, you got to cooperate with them. Right? So like a form of torture. She's like, you gotta cooperate. But also to these ideas about what is the kind of exoticism of the Asian vision or the perception of Asian and Asian American people. And the joke that is often leveled upon me of, oh, your eyes look closed even when they're open. Like, how can we tell that your eyes are open or closed? Which, I mean, my family often used in a lighthearted manner, but of course, especially coming from people who don't know and like actually love me is incredibly triggering. Yeah. So it's something that I wanted to capture because I think that many people have had that type of conversation in these circumstances where it's like, you can't tell that my eyes are open, or you think that they are not open because they are not what your version of normal is. And that's something that I wanted to speak to. And I think the erased form, someone, when I workshop this poem, noted that the mother figure drops out of the erased version. And that's something that really struck me because it was completely unintended. But I think in some way, when we have a migraine or when we have an invisible disability, it's something that separates us from others because they cannot possibly understand the experience. They don't know. Perhaps we look completely normal to them. I mean, maybe we look sick, but it's not like, oh, I got purple spots in my face or something. So it's something that I feel is incredibly isolating. And that's something that I wanted to capture.
Yeah. Okay, closing question, Maria. What's something in any medium, because we're in the hybrid genre, that's really inspiring you as an artist right now?
There's a lot of things, but I guess I want to share that I'm leading a generative workshop, and last week we did a prompt based on the meme, "It's dangerous to go along, take this."
Amazing.
Holding a kitten. So I've been thinking about how objects reveal character. So the prompt was in any form, poetry or prose, because we have many different writers in the class. Pick objects that people use and manipulate to explain character. So I gave an example of my father with a table saw, a fire axe, and one of those old style calculators that had receipt paper, because those are things that I viscerally remember him using in front of me on multiple occasions that really define different aspects of his character and kind of draw out these tensions and conflicts between different aspects of self. And that's something that I'm thinking about in my own writing these days. So
Wow.
Memes can inspire.
Memes as inspiration. I love it. That's wonderful. Okay, so thank you so much for talking with me today, Maria. You can view Maria's piece Obeyed for eye doctors at Longleaf Review, along with the rest of our current issues. So again, thank you, Maria, and thank
Thank you
you,
so much,
everyone.
Erin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.